Hello, everyone. My name is Sven Deniken. I'm the CEO of S4HANA, and I'm happy to have you here virtually, and great to be back here in this show. So we're going to talk about the path to transitioning to SAP S4HANA Cloud today. That said, I think, as always, it's good to structure it with the why, what, how, because if we can't agree on the why we're doing, why we're going to the cloud, it's always hard, and you're going to learn that because we're going to speak about examples we learn from customers. But with no further ado, let's jump right into it and talk about why cloud, why SAP S4HANA. And the simplest way to explain this is actually what is happening in three areas. One, from a business side, because we are talking serious business. And the other one, of course, is the IT side. If you look at the challenges of the digital economy the customers facing, they need to look and change their business. By the way, constantly. We are in a lifelong learning. And if I decode the business part is, of course, the operational angle where complexity comes in, where cost pressure comes in, where other experience that my customers want. But also from a strategic perspective, there are new business models. There is, of course, disruption in the industry, and not only with pandemic or Brexit coming soon, but also with the question about lines of businesses are blurring. And that means if you expand, if you grow, if you change your business models, you better be prepared best. On the flip side, if I look at IT, which we are in, it is, of course, decisions we need to make. What is the deployment model? Which solution do I use? How do I integrate in my environment? And how do I use what I already maybe have? And there's a lot of decisions from an architecture standpoint we all need to take. Now, that said, that is, of course, clear that our customers facing the same actually challenge that we need to address to. In the industry disruption discussed before is the mass customization. It's the question of they have cost pressures as well. They want to purchase global, they want to produce global. And I think in the middle, you see the consequences pretty nicely pictured, like the value of a rising lot size is going down. And that's why I have much more transactions that the system needs to take, much more standardized, much more actually tailored toward the people. And that, again, for an IT orchestration is a challenge. We all decided together that we're living in an orchestrated world of solutions, and cloud is the North Star where we're coming to. And by the way, for the records, I'm talking software as a service. There are many definitions of cloud, and there are many ways to get there, like infrastructure underneath, using platforms to develop. But software as a service as the North Star is really getting us there. Now, if this is the why we're looking into cloud, why customers are actually saying, why not cloud, or cloud first, or cloud only, what does that mean for a solution? And what does that mean for clients and how they are embarking? So the what is equally important, because when you go into projects, when you actually make your transition towards the cloud, it is important to understand what do you get. Of course, you get standardization, and we'll talk about the how in a second, but you need to look at a couple of angles. You need to look that the solution is completely rejuvenated with industry best practices, because you're not only in one industry. Sometimes you're a producer as well as a service organization, as well as a retailer. That's the reality we're in today. You need to look at a broad coverage of line of business, because not only you want to cover finance, manufacturing, logistics, HR, whatever have you, but how do they play together on actually one very intelligent automated platform? And you need to look about how to change the interaction with the system. Like, does this solution speak to you and your role? Do you know what you do? Is it actually giving you the data you need at your fingertips to make the right decisions? And last but not least, in the cloud, we need to look at, is it secure? Is it compliant? And on the other side, as we don't want to punish anyone going to public cloud, is it open enough? Can I extend it? And this is, of course, when you make and you plan your transition, the beauty of having it on one code line, one semantical data model, one experience, you can also actually define the degree of cloud and SaaS you want to achieve. Nevertheless, for the remainder of this session, I want to talk about software as a service, public cloud. Already two different expressions for the same thing. which means it's not unimportant, and we'll come to platform for sure, how you run that infrastructure as a service. And you see that at the bottom of this slide, that of course we can help as SAP, but also hyperscalers play an important and very crucial role in how you make your transition and your path. And by the way, no matter even if you run it on your premises, infrastructure as a service should be a given. Now, again, it is not just one solution. It's not just one module. We need to think and we need to look at the transition also along the end-to-end processes, which at SAP comprise that to that intelligent suite: lead to cash, source to pay, recruit to retire, design to operate. And this is where different solutions also need to play together and where we need to understand how the semantics, the data flow, the process flow needs to look like. And those suite qualities are the ones you should expect. It's very hard in an environment where you have different solutions, but we're going to make it easy for you to at least look on the end-to-end processes and the suite qualities. And this is also where we are investing. And where in a project, you need to have the skill sets of your people to exactly support that. That said, if I look further about some of the qualities very much tailored towards cloud, I think this is, also, of course, also showing the technical benefits that you say. And I start from the bottom. Infrastructure as a service is a commodity in the future. Of course, we're happy to support you, and we will have situations where in some regions you might run on one hyperscaler and one on the other, and that's not simple, and that's not easy. So better we have a very clear agreement on the quality of that service underneath. No good software as a service without a good platform as a service, and we have one. So the platform, the runtime, the database, the abilities that you have to upgrade your system, but also develop the extensions, play an equally crucial role. Then the application itself, how open it is. And last but not least, how reliable? What is the SLA? How do the downtimes of upgrades work? And last but not least, can I manage it via my iPhone or my mobile device? That is exactly what you expect from a cloud solution. When you go into ERP, where maybe historically you expect complexity, cloud gives you simplicity if you do it right. We'll come to that in a second. And that does also mean we need to talk and we need to see a lot when it comes to automation. And we've depicted here that a lot of the investments we're doing and the benefits you will get with cloud is standardization plus automation. Because those intelligent technologies that we're investing in, machine learning, how you interact with your solution, robotic process automation are in the forefront of our thinking. By the way, the best user experience is non-user experience. The system works for you. But actually don't just throw technology at a problem. Figure out where technology helps, because not only we are applying it, via the platform, we're giving the exact same technology for you to extend, to do actually your own bots via API and not constantly retrain them. Machine learning that you can extend in the system and not side by side, like pushing data back and forth. Those are very clear concepts that we're using ourselves, and we're giving that to you as partners and customers to do the same. So I look into this now. This is, of course, something where if you look at what are we doing, we're constantly looking where how you run your business today needs to change very quickly. We're spending a lot in operations. If you have real-time insights in your business where you can even add predictive, you can actually, of course, focus on the right things, because insights make you do better business decisions. But that's not actually where we want to go. We want to go even further to the right, where predictiveness comes in with the system. And that's exactly where we intrinsically in S/4HANA, and specifically in the cloud with standardization, with pre-configuration, we give you those business values. We have those solutions, those business processes who forward-looking have you to make the better, the faster decisions, to focus on the exceptions. This is exactly where we see a trajectory and where we've seen the projects actually getting the best benefit out of it. Now, of course, you want to know also where are we on the trajectory of this. And there are a couple of sessions that I highlighted in the course of the presentation, and we'll sum it up also later, where I would like to motivate you to look into. And one of them, of course, is the roadmaps, because we're constantly engaging with clients and partners. And by the way, of course, also with the community that I'm going to invite you to, how to prioritize what we're going to do next. I'm sitting here in the headquarters of SAP, and I'm not going to invent all of that. That is you, the existing customers, who give us a lot of the feedback, which now you see codified here in those interactive roadmaps, and where you can also do your own roadmap, because we have a tool which actually should easily help you where you are to define the step where you go, because we're not forcing you to just one approach. We're helping you to get the steps that you need to get there. Now, with that explaining and talking a little bit about why are we doing that and what are we doing, let's come actually to the key part of this session, which is the how. Because we have hundreds and thousands of projects here, larger and smaller, which we decode from an engineering perspective and bring that back into the solution in the fast cycle of innovation that we have. By the way, we're talking about innovation cycles. We're meanwhile embarking into continuous feature delivery, because some of the changes you even can do in the background. Some of those changes you might want to toggle and actually say, I want to have it for a certain part of my business, or we as SAP want to have it for a certain population of our customers. So those are concepts which in the cloud work perfectly. And that's why it's not one size fits all, and the flexibility in the cloud is equally important. But let's dive into it. What is the key difference if we truly talk software as a service? It is actually from a traditional approach, which less and less works, like, can I take your order? Let me know your requirements. I customize the solution. It still works in certain areas, but I think that's a traditional way towards the transformative element of the cloud, like how can the solution guide me? What is the best practice also ingrained in the solution? What is the methodology to get there? How agile is this approach to the tools that help me to get there, the pre-definition of the content? Of course, prescription is done not to take you in custody. Prescription is done to show you the way and then ask the question, well, now we've done it, a very clear, a clear path forward. Let's think about complexity later, or specifics. And maybe we don't even need it because the standard way works. That's the net of standardization and the benefit, of course, also behind that. So how are we doing that? So I think the best one would be to look from a customer lens to it, because to get to the cloud, it is wise to use a methodology. And we have one which is called SAP Activate. And the name has a meaning because we do activate functionality in the cloud. We don't customize. And here are two examples from customers who leverage that to get into the cloud, one with the entire business, yes, and the other one actually with a very classical approach, like two-tier, like a hybrid, where certain parts of his business he still runs traditionally, and other parts, fast-growing words, maybe also regions, he's leveraging actually full public cloud. The methodology helped them actually also not only to leverage the best practice, but also educate their people, their project, the people making the decisions, like what are the standards that I should use first? And on the other example, it was also important to show the speed, the fast outcome by using that methodology. So let's double click how that looks like. So on the path to the cloud, first of all, it is about speed. And that means that the business process, which is already ingrained into the solution, so the best practice processes, based on a very clear methodology, can be activated in the system to check it, to apply it, and of course, for the business user to use it. And that's why when we look into not only the methodology for the project itself, but also for the business processes definition. And that again, next to the speed that we gain overall, it's also afterwards when you activate new innovations. And of course, we have tools for that, but it's very important that in the public cloud, tools, methodology, and the content are part of the solution. This is not different things. It needs to be together. And by that, of course, we have shown that the business impact by using that methodology is just so much higher than a traditional approach of a project. What are we using to support, and what are some of the tools and areas I want you to look at when you do your path to the cloud? So first one I want to mention is this ready-to-run processes, where you also have a very decisive and distinct process documentation. So the best practice definition in what we call the enterprise management layer, where the standard processes for every enterprise is codified. You can look at them, you can apply them. And actually, you should not and you don't need to change them because they are proven. You might enhance them, but they help you for that standardization. Then in the middle, you see on the methodology that I mentioned before, that step-by-step deployment guidance for your project teams as well. Don't complicate the things. Stick to standard as much as you can, and then afterwards think about where you maybe need extensions or deviate from the standard process. And that needs to be supported by very powerful tools, our cloud application lifecycle management, where you can run your project, where you can codify your configuration, and afterwards you deploy your system. This is the three ingredients who make a public cloud solution truly successful. Because of course, we have seen projects where even in the public cloud, people manage to get complexity in, and you should not do that. Now, if we look at this one here, we have very clear milestones. It's very similar to actually agile methodology, and I want to motivate you to look at some of those sessions we have here coming up, because that methodology, of course, we adopted also to the solution itself. So let's walk through it very quickly. When you are in the value discovery, it's actually pretty helpful to start with the best practice on your starter system, where you look into, you check your setup, you can even walk through your business processes, and you support a very important part of your project, which is fit to standard. And by the way, we'll dive into it in a second, even now done completely remotely, because that's the world we're currently in. Then you go into your configuration, and of course also in the continuous innovation cycle that you have, migrating your data, testing the data, and onboarding your users, where you then do provision and activate into your quality system, and there then you're ready to put that in your productive system. And we're of course having central configurations at that application lifecycle management tool supporting that process. Behind this one, and the invitation will come later in this presentation, there's an entire ecosystem, there's an entire community of people, more than 37K experts, showing how such projects can be run. So that methodology is not something that you only can apply and adhere to, that's also an invitation to community, which makes it better every day. Now, if this is done, what you're doing, the question is, what are the tools around it that you have? I mentioned the community on the left side. Please request your access. It's for free. You can go in there. Meanwhile, 37,000 members where you can change with SAP experts, with other customers, with partners who give you advice, who help you to do the right things. In the middle, I mentioned the roadmap viewer. The roadmap viewer is not just a PowerPoint somewhere out there where we're going. We even have included it into the methodology because you have a functionality and maybe you want to extend it. You want to know, what is SAP thinking of? What is SAP together with its customers and partners thinking of as being the next one? And yes, last but not least, the best practice explorer, because the closer you are to them, the more standardization you have, the less specifics you need afterwards. So assuming you have made the transition and you want to do it today, and I mentioned that quickly before, is, well, how do you do fit to standard workshops if we can't come physically into one room? And actually based on feedback that we got a lot from partners, from customers itself, we have put playbooks out there. It's up there, you can look at it, the links are here, you can leverage it, where we have completely virtualized collaboration tools using how can you prepare, how can you execute fit to standard, and how actually can you afterwards do cut over, go to live. I am actually pretty astonished how fast that went, because we all needed to, and I'm pretty confident that with those learnings, this is a lot of learnings which we keep using also in the future. So fit to standard, completely virtual, very good learning in the cloud that you should leverage. I spoke a little bit about the cloud application lifecycle management. And again, here, it's not just a project tool. It's actually project management, process management, tasks, and also test in the future into one tool. Why? Because we're not talking about toy business. We're talking about running with S/4HANA Cloud significant parts of businesses. So you better combine this in one shell, in one tool. Of course, you have maybe your own view about how you run project management, but to bring that together in a shell which is actually attached to the product has a lot of benefits. So in the path to the cloud, to see the processes, to see also where you alternate, to see the tasks that need to be performed, a big learning, and something I want to motivate not only for this session here, explaining more about the cloud application lifecycle management, but also the learnings from customers, because that brings business and even the IT teams super close together to do the right decisions. Another one I want to mention is, when I summarize it, of course, also from a cloud perspective, is why is it different and what should I use to make it different? Some elements I mentioned. This is, I think, a comprehensive list about all the possibilities that you have. And they are actually also a little bit in the sequential order. Hey, try before you buy. Look at the best practice if they fit to you. Go into the roadmap views to see where are we today and what is coming up with the next releases. As I said, in the future, not only quarterly, but also with a constant feature delivery. How can I manage my system now as a setup and also going forward? What is in there that helps me to migrate my data and migrate actually towards a cloud solution? And very, very important, the test automation around. Where we, of course, even the cloud application lifecycle management, we deliver test automation tools because you are in your environment, in an environment where your system is connected to others. Addition to that is, of course, how do I extend from here? And I want to double click in that topic very specifically. Assuming that you like the best practice, assuming that you implement it with standardization, I bet you there will be an area where you say, here I want to differentiate, here I want to extend. And the first answer to it, look at the extensibility you have in the solution itself. So in-app extensibility, a very important one. We're investing a lot. But there might be topics either by yourself or by a partner where you want to extend maybe a very specific business part or business process part of your organization. And we have an answer for that. As I said before, good software as a service needs and has a good platform as a service. And that's why building on our platform at SAP with the Cloud SDK on top, a software development kit, is actually helping you to offboard also complexity. Keep the core clean, offboard the complexity, do specifics on the cloud platform. And here, native cloud development, Java, JavaScript, actually also abilities that you have with very modern technology helps you a lot to get there. If we look here a little bit deeper, and I mentioned it before, is what are the potentials and what is the big picture for extensibility? Again, let's not forget, there's a lot you can do inside the application, like adopting the user interface, custom analytics that you need maybe to extract your data right away on the screens where you make the decisions, expose data to other solutions, create forms and so forth. Maybe also adopt the application logic of the system to a certain degree, and then adding new fields. So this is standard today in the cloud. But as I said, at some point in time, there might be something where you said, I don't want to deviate from the standard, but I need something very specific. And this is where, based on the SAP Cloud Platform, our business technology platform, we deliver the ability, based on the same semantic, with the same user interface, either with data replication or with online access, the ability to develop via the software development kit, small, larger, very significant solutions. Good thing is, we as SAP are using that as well. A lot of innovation that we do on the SAP Cloud Platform, we are doing ourselves. with the same tools that we're giving to our clients and to our partners. And that's, I think, the hybrid, which is extremely helpful. While you standardize as much as possible with the standard business processes, you can extend them. Now, if we look a little bit deeper here, tack it into the technical topics around that, of course, side-by-side extensibility has a need. And a need is usually application programming interface, APIs, or core data services, CDS views, where we have thousands that we whitelisted in operations that we support, because that is actually the currency that we need in the cloud. By the way, the same when you do integration to other systems. And that's why we have invested not only in APIs itself, but also in industry specific. And we have a huge partner system backing us up to enable us to be able to connect either on the user interface layer that you see here, on those OData services, on the application layer, or even on the database side of the house. And that's why it's very important that you dig deeper into what the technical principles and opportunities are. Again, number one, because you want to keep standardizing as much as you can, but you want to have an answer to some asks. Let me give you an idea. What I mean is there's often an ask, is there an app for that? People build apps and apps on top of solutions. Well, if you build them here with this extensibility, you're sure using the same semantics, and you can maybe please your business with a very quick solution that you put out there. So how do you discover that? Because of course, with the limited time we have in this session, we of course have an ability for you to look deeper. And I would motivate you to look at one thing, and that link even I can remember by heart, because it's www.sap.com/extend-s4. This is an explorer we have put out there for you guys to explore what are the technical and the business potential about extensibility in-app and side-by-side. So you can gain this interview about how to do that. More than that, we have also the best practice ingrained in there. We have samples that you can actually download ready to run to your landscape via cockpit and use it. You can see access patterns, how other extensibilities have been done. And of course, also, when you specifically answer one of those example questions I made before, is there an app for that? You can explore the entire mobile first opportunities in there. And we have, meanwhile, already low code and no code via rapid application development in there. So definitely a site worth to look into and to figure out how you can apply it. And there are dedicated sessions around the Cloud Software Development Kit where you can make those things, test them out in a cloud native way. So to sum it up here from a platform perspective, there are enough potential and enough tools, enough examples to help you to extend your solution. While again, I keep repeating, you standardize as much as you can and you extend solution via the platform. The Explorer I mentioned, but there's of course more. The API Business Hub, you want to know how this currency of API evolves. Partner solutions that already have been built as extensions in our App Center, where you can right away click, download, and connect with your solution. The build kit itself with the platform, the software development kit, by the way, on the SAP Cloud Platform, Java, JavaScript, and of course, low code, no code. But meanwhile, also with an ABAP extensibility we have on the platform, where you can take some of your old add-ons and actually re-standardize them on the solution. And software development kits were specifically for mobile purpose, like the iOS and others. So I showed you here the overview. You can download those slides for sure. There are dedicated sessions for this where you can drill in deeper. Just want to make sure you know there is a lot of flexibility in the cloud, but use it wisely. Let me summarize and then point you to some more resources as well as you had before. And again, not to be repetitive, but you know me, why, what, and how. So again, the why, I think, is very well explained if you take an analogy what the public cloud, the software as a service is really about. It is like the World Business Tube. What I mean by that, end-to-end processes which are predefined, but of course you can deviate where you need. You can change the business processes as you get from one station on the other tube. And interestingly enough, those end-to-end processes, the business tubes need to be connected. And I have two examples. Of course, finance, always a very important one, but also approvals, where they connect with and how they play with it. I found that as a very interesting analogy because this is how our end-to-end best practice look like. And this is where you want to embark your business, your colleagues, like in a tube, to say, this is how the business process looks like. This is how they intersect. This is how they leverage from each other. And that's why I do happen to believe that in the North Star, where we're heading to, more and more software as a service will be applied. And we are here to show you the way to get there. And we're showing you that, of course, not only from a business tube perspective, but also, and that is depicted here. So let me go back in a second, how we also can leverage the automation, where you can make shortcuts around business processes, because certain things can be completely automated. And that is the beauty of the cloud as well, of software as a service, that wherever we find automation, we can bring it out actually the next quarter with the next feature toggle based continuous feature delivery, where we can help you to actually run the tube much, much better to help your business. If I look at this one, of course, this is also an initial session to show you what we have learned from the path of the transition to a SAP S/4HANA Cloud. But you want to know more for sure. And this is why we invite you to join our movement, as it says, sap.com/join the movement, where you're going to find the needed information about how to get there, no matter where you are, because we pick you up where you are. We don't force you into anything, but we show you a clear path. And that again does mean tries you by looking at the roadmaps. Last but not least, again, I want to repeat, this is not only you and us and maybe a partner. This is an entire community behind that. So please, as a customer, also join the SAP Customer S/4HANA Cloud customer community. Why? Because again, a lot of practitioners have put a lot of thoughts into what is needed, how you apply that, what are good lessons, how do other customers of similar industry or industries where you need to think about. Remember what I said at the beginning, you might be in manufacturing, but you actually meanwhile sell an outcome of your product, or you're focusing and pivoting to services-based outcome, or you need a retail approach because you need to reach to your customers completely different. Here it will be shared also with the community, what they learned, how they applied those best practices in their respective community. Now, with that said, I had in the presentation already some hints about other sessions that, biased as I am, I put in a list here, which I think you should, of course, also look at and digest and leverage once you make your move towards SAP S/4HANA Cloud, and some links that will help you. So I have a present at the end for you. A lot of that, what I talked about, the Activate methodology, even here is an online book where you can, with a discount code, look into, because at the end of the day, we want to give you that. It's part of how a project should be run. And I think you need and should continue your learning experience also with SAP TechEd here in 2020. So please deepen your learning with the experience you have here. Activate your free access you have, for example, also to the Learning Hub, where we have a specific event edition where you can also define your personal learning journey. Because as I mentioned a couple of times, technologies are changing. Ways how to activate solutions are changing. And that's why we are all in together a constant lifelong learning. And that's why we have also specific content here for TechEd Online, those learning rooms around that. Deepen and validate also your skills you have, because by subscribing to the SAP Learning Hub, you'll be able to get your solution-specific learning journey, because that is something also for the ecosystem, very, very important. It's an invitation which I'm happy and hopefully you're going to leverage, because taking it from there, cloud will happen. The question is how fast and to what degree. With that said, I thank you very much for your attention. My name is still Sven Denneken. I'm happy to receive your information. Follow me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I'm happy to connect you with the experts. Thanks for tuning in this session and looking forward to hopefully seeing you soon in person again. Thank you very much.